Okay, hey everybody, welcome to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. A really cool review for you guys from the brand Camp Watches. And they're a new micro brand recently founded by industrial designer Justin Jacobson. These watches are Swiss made but designed in Los Angeles, and that is also where the brand is headquartered out of. Now, in terms of type of watch, I'd consider this an everyday dress watch. Some key characteristics and design language, you're looking for something you can wear every day that still dresses up pretty nicely. Of course, you're going to want to find that clean, classic, minimalist design, something that is sensibly sized and typically reminiscent of classically worn mid-century timepieces from an era much less casual than today's typical attire. This is their Fieldtimer in the Atlantic blue colorway, and this particular color was actually inspired by the vintage 1970s BMW 2002 Atlantic blue paint color, and I think that's pretty cool. So these are made in Switzerland and designed in Los Angeles, and the Fieldtimer really embodies the inimitable culture and colors of Southern California, but instead of dreams, it runs on the precision of a customized Sedate SW210 mechanical movement. There are 3 straps that are included with every watch, one water-resistant Cordura nylon, as well as a soft Italian full-grain leather, and a vintage Bon Clip style steel bracelet. These go for $1,099 direct from the brand, and this unit was kindly lent in by the brand, and I will be returning it after I kind of check it out and spend some time with it. And I have to say that this is a cool one. I really dig the aesthetic here, and honestly, I feel like these manual wind kind of everyday dress watches are having a bit of a moment in terms of popularity, so I think this was really well timed. So with all that said, let's go ahead, zoom the camera out, get this piece in hand, and take a closer look. Okay guys, now before we dive in, one thing with new brands, it's always nice to see kind of how things come packaged all along. So outer box, inner sleeve, check it out, pretty nice. And like I said, one of the cool things about this is you actually are getting 3 different straps included, which is very, very cool. So definitely dig that. Very usable strap roll, as you guys can see here. You can tuck the watch in, and then you do get some other options. I'm going to leave it on the Cordura here because this is a new watch that is going to have to be sent back and either loaned out to other reviewers or eventually sold. So I'm going to try to keep everything nice and tidy. I won't even unwrap this buckle because I unwrapped the other one, but this looks really good. So really nice. I dig that everything is thematically tied together in terms of the colors and the color play there. So very nice. And then of course, if you guys are fans of the channel, you probably seen me review Bon Clip style bracelets in the past. I think these are actually really, really cool. No, they don't taper, but they're very comfortable and they give a certain aesthetic that is tough to recreate. Like, it's a good look for sure. And then this looks like a pretty modern variation, and you do even have quick release spring bars. And the cool thing is that you actually get to choose between 2 sizes. You can get like a standard size or an extra long one if you have a larger wrist. Because of this type of system, you do have to be able to get it over your hand when you're putting it on and off. So that is an option, which is cool. And I think these look really great. And I like, again, that they went with something that was very, very usable. So this doesn't necessarily have to go into a closet. This can actually be left out, and you can store this. You can use it to take it to watch meets or whatever, or even as just a nice little clean working space as you're swapping out straps. But with that said, let's take a look here. Now, some of the things I really like about this, let me give it a quick little wipe on that beautiful sapphire crystal. So there are some things that I really enjoy just even at a glance, and a lot of that has to do with the aesthetic. I think this thing is gorgeous, and I mean, I like that it is actually quite playful in the colorway, but then in terms of the design itself, it's very, very classic. So it's going to have a great level of versatility and timelessness that I really appreciate. Now, 39 millimeters in diameter, which is wonderful. And some of you might be thinking, that might be a little big for this type of watch. I will say that because of that stepped bezel, which is pretty beautifully executed, and you can see that nice top hat double dome sapphire there with inner AR coating, really just flows with those lines. And look at that beautiful thin mid case. These little undercut, these little scallops here. A lot of brands will throw a little bevel here, but I like that they went for the undercut instead, because that actually it of course does what a bevel does in terms of being a little bit of a flex. Sorry, I just decided to wipe it off real quick. In terms of showing the level of precision when you are separating in between the brushed and polished transitions. But this little undercut also helps with the comfortable wear on the wrist, as well as just shrinking down the overall footprint while you wear the watch, because of how much is going to be really contacting your skin. So I like that a lot. Again, it's something a little bit different, just a little touch here and there. Those are the type of things you really kind of have to look for. But at a glance, it's just a very clean design. And I mean, even when you get down into the beautifully done signed crown there with that very, very fine toothing done on that kind of coin edge for the tactile engagement while you're winding this piece, it is very, very nice. And again, sorry guys, I am just smudging this thing away today. It's a little bit of a warmer afternoon. Let me give it a little extra breath touch there to hopefully get any of the finger oil off of this crystal, and then of course even dust it off there. Okay, so hopefully, and it's going to stand out because of this dial. This thing is absolutely next level, guys. Look at how clean and beautiful that is. I can't understate just the level of depth that you're going to get from this dial. So before we get to that burlap stove enameled lacquer on the dial, I do want to make sure that I hit some of the other details. So we do also have inside the mechanical, I don't know why I said mechanical and mechanical, SW210-1 Bravo. So manually wound, really nicely done. And you've seen these movements become more and more popular. The nice thing is you still are getting hacking and hand winding, getting a 42-hour power reserve. You're getting a clean 4 hertz beat rate. So it's going to be ticking at 28,800 vibrations per hour, which is fantastic. And this is also accurate to plus or minus 7 seconds per day. So they definitely used a higher grade and made sure that it was really well regulated. And you even do have some interesting font choices on the back there in terms of the etching around that sapphire display back. Now to this dial, which I think is really, really something special and probably not easy to capture on photos, but I'm hoping that on camera I'm able to really, accentuate just how good this thing is. So this is an enameled lacquer dial with a printed index, and the index is on top of that lacquer, and it almost creates like a bit of floating appearance to this, because this is such a deep, lustrous lacquer on this dial, guys, which again, hard probably to capture on in photography, but little, I think maybe a little more hopeful on videography. Hopefully I can really get this at the right angle so you guys can get a better idea of what exactly is so special about this piece. Look at that. Ooh. And I know there's some reflection, but I kind of have to get extra light on it just so you guys can hopefully get a better look. Now, It does have a brushed handset as well with these beautiful painted blue accents there, as you guys can see. And you're also getting loom, which is nice. There's even this really clean stack cover on the hand stack, which is beautiful and something that I typically key into in much more expensive watches. So it's nice to see that here in a more affordable piece. But again, in terms of level of execution, this doesn't read as something that's super affordable. And some of you might be thinking $1,000, that doesn't sound super affordable, Mark, but I will say, considering the specs and considering the market for these timepieces, I mean, this is actually, I think, quite affordable. Now, the loom, I couldn't find what it was specified as, probably because there's every different color combination is going to be using something different, but this does glow green, and it's a very nice shade of green at that. And then you do get 100 meters of water resistance, which is very, very nice. So that means that this is just built to a higher tolerance, tighter tolerances, good gaskets and sealing and everything. So this is going to really be more robust than it probably needs to be. And then in terms of the lug width, guys, 20 millimeters at the lugs, and you can see they are drilled lugs, but you also do get quick release spring bars built into these straps, which is very cool. I really, really like this nice Cordura nylon. It does have a 2 millimeter taper to this beautiful 3D signed buckle. Check that out. It's just something different, and then you can see beautifully done. I mean, this is quite well executed in terms of, I mean, this buckle just it doesn't need to be on a watch that costs $1,000. This definitely was something I would expect, again, for something that is more in the entry level or mid-tier luxury range in terms of just a level of robustness. It doesn't need to be overbuilt like this, but it is. I mean, even just the fitment of the finger into the gap there. Look at that. And then the fact that you have beautiful finishing on it as well. It's stuff like this that's just green flags for me. So even though there's parts of the watch that I can't see, when I see levels of precision like this, levels of effort, it does make me know, at least give me a better feeling that the parts I can't see have also been, there's been a certain level of attention to detail there that's going to be present. Also, guys, the Italian leather has a similar taper, and then of course the bond clip doesn't have any taper, and you do get kind of small and large length options, which you would choose at checkout. So with that said, let's actually get this piece on the wrist and see how it wears. Okay, guys, as you can see on my 7.5-inch wrist, I think this wears beautifully. And although my wrist is on the larger side of average, I will say that, as you guys can see, it's a pretty round wrist, pretty tall, so it's not like it's super wide and flat and accommodating. So, I am somebody that does have to be, very considerate when it comes to the sizing of a watch. And you guys can see this thing is gorgeous. Look at how beautifully that just sits on the wrist and hugs it. Those beautiful undercuts there, just helping melt everything away and even giving you a visually thinner case profile for that mid case. Very nice. And I love the compartmentalization that you're getting from the stepped bezel. It doesn't feel like an elongation of that mid case. It feels separate, but it feels very thin and really, really just well done. Of course, if I get my wrist a bit too close to the camera lens, you're going to get a fair amount of perspective distortion. So it's going to make the watch seem a lot larger than it actually is. So what I like to do is just tighten up the frame here and really just kind of showcase how this might look with just a truer aspect ratio as how it may appear on your own wrist. And check that out. I think this looks absolutely fantastic. Again, beautifully thin, but now you can see how well centered it actually is. And again, look at that profile. Very clean, very nice. I know some of you might be thinking, okay, it seems like are those lugs a little long? It's really just because of the guiding lines here. Because of this undercut and the angle that it's at, it's giving you a straight plane, and it's maybe elongating it visually. But I will say again, if you look down at it, it's still just a 46.8 millimeter lug width. Lug to lug. So in terms of the case length itself, it's still very, very manageable. And as you guys can see, the strap just drapes down pretty immediately there. And it's not like there's huge gaps or anything like that. So very, very clean. I'm really digging this blue. I love the nod to the vintage BMW there, and that these are kind of, in a way, a secret kind of car watch, right? Even though it's taking a lot of inspiration from manual wind field watches and kind of mid-century everyday dress watches. At the same time, it does have this kind of automotive inspired theme, which I dig, of course. And I think there's a lot of crossover between watch collecting and car enthusiasm as well. And this just looks great. So with that said, let's actually get this off the wrist, set up for some loom shots, low light transition, and closing thoughts. Okay, let's go ahead and hit the lights here. All right, check that out. Very nice. And again, this is an everyday dress watch, so it's not a diver. It doesn't necessarily need to just be burning super bright or anything like that. And, maybe it didn't get a full charge, so let's go ahead and hit it with the black light here just to give you guys an idea of where the loom is applied. So very, very cool. I dig that. But ultimately, there's not a lot of volume to apply that. Even the text is skeletonized there on those numerals. So yeah, there's only so much you could expect, I should say, from that. The handset definitely stands out quite a bit, so that's nice. And then you're still going to have relative cardinal reference. But again, you're not taking this down into the murky depths of the ocean, so you're not going to necessarily have to worry too much about low light legibility. So what I like to do is also work in a bit of transitional lighting there, because you're not always going to be out in the middle of a field enjoying direct sunlight. A lot of times you're going to find yourself coming in and out of buildings, walking underneath overhangs, and just hanging out underneath the shade of a tree. So you never know how this is going to render in less than optimal lighting. So it is nice to see how these colors, textures, and finishes render like in that type of lighting. And you guys can see the contrast you're going to get from that dial and these gorgeous numerals are going to be more than enough. So again, this is not going to go on any special forces missions or anything like that where you're going to really need a lot of extra legibility. But hey, if you're in the movie theater and you're wondering what time it is, this isn't going to be, is not going to offer you the same level of low light legibility as a dive watch, but it's also not going to be a dive watch, and you might not want to wear a dive watch everywhere you go with everything that you wear. So something like this, I think, offers a really nice little just punch of style and class. The full numerals, I love that there's a different font for every different colorway that they have. It's just very, very cool. So with that said, let's go ahead and get into some closing thoughts. Now, on the wrist, very classic wear, extremely well balanced and proportioned. Its thoughtful color play definitely helped this one really pop while still remaining rather sedate and versatile at a glance. So again, it's not going to totally jump out at you, and I like that. I like that it's something that's going to kind of be able to go a bit under the radar, but then the more attention you give it, the more you can kind of reveal some really awesome details. In terms of model variants, check the site links in the descriptions for options and availability, but they did have a few other really cool themed variations that I would love to check out one day, because this brand, to me, especially like this is their first kind of foray into watches, I love that they really just went all in on a theme that they really enjoyed. In terms of comparable models, guys, this compares really well against models like the Yema Urban Field, which I reviewed on the channel, the Studio Underdog 02 series, the Vero Meridian I haven't reviewed, but I'd love to check out, and the Shinola Mechanic, which I have recently reviewed, and I really enjoy that one. And it's quite a bit more expensive than this, and it only comes on a bracelet. And you can save a little bit of money if you get another variation that's on a strap. But this comes with a bracelet and two straps, which is pretty awesome when you think about it. So this has really kind of been a great little year or 2-year run for manual wound kind of dressy / fashionable field watches. And yes, $1,000 for a newer upstart brand does sound pricey. But I think once you take into account the specs against the current market of similarly themed pieces, then add in the included 3 strap options, the enameled lacquer dial, I think camp has actually priced the Fieldtimer pretty competitively, all things considered. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. If you liked the video, please do hit like. And if you haven't already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.